Okay, it looks like we're live. Awesome.
Woo!
Welcome. If you are tuning in, thank you for joining our Buzzsprout Live, where we're going to be talking about all things magic mastering. We are just waiting for everyone to get logged on. And so while we are, I want to make sure that you can hear me or hear us. Let us know where you're tuning in from. That's what I want to know. I'm from Florida, the Sunshine State. That's where I'm broadcasting from. And I have some guests with me that I'm going to introduce shortly. But Jordan, where are you tuning in from?
Boise, Idaho, the gem state. So
Ooh,
Gem State.
tomatoes.
nice.
Gem state.
What
Gem
All
in the
gems are from
right.
mountains.
Idaho?
Huh?
What gems are from Idaho?
Like all the gems. We have all the gems. And there's a
Including
star
Jordan.
garnet here. Yeah, including me, obviously. We have like a star garnet that can only be found here. And in India, it's like a rare gemstone. But yeah, we have lots and lots of gems here. I don't know.
Oh,
Wow.
I'm also from the Sunshine State, where we have beaches and oranges and all sorts of great stuff.
And humidity.
Theme parks.
Amazing. Yeah.
Alligators.
Yes, so fun. Awesome. Well, we are excited about this live because we have done them previously on our Facebook community group, but this is our first time going live on YouTube. So, or at least my first time.
Me
So we're excited. Oh, good. Yeah, this is new for us and this is gonna be fun. So, all right. Well, I think we can probably go ahead and get started. So, to introduce, my name is Kara, and I'm a part of the podcaster success team here at Buzzsprout. So, what that means is when you reach out to support@buzzsprout.com or use the help form in your app or in your account, you reach me or one of our other teammates. You'll always reach a real person. I've been doing this for going on 2 years now. Love working with our podcasters, love providing resources to help along the way and help troubleshoot things. And recently we've been doing these lives, and this is just so much fun. I can't wait to dive into our fun features. So I'm happy to be here. And with me, I have Jordan. And Jordan might be a familiar voice because she is one of the co hosts for Buzzcast, our podcast here. And she also hosts her own podcast called Dreamful. And Jordan produces all of the podcasts that we put out here at Buzzsprout. So she actually has firsthand experience with magic mastering. And so, Jordan, yes, thank you for joining us. We can't wait to pick your brain.
Thank you.
Of course. And Albin is another familiar voice because he is another co-host for Buzzcast. And he is also a self-proclaimed podcast fanboy. So it totally makes sense why he is our head of marketing because he loves podcasting. And so, Albin, thank you for being here. I'm excited
Thanks
to
for
have
having
you.
me. I'm
And
glad to be
yeah.
here. I'm glad to be a fanboy for podcasting. And thanks to everybody tuning in with us.
Yes, so exciting. So as I was doing a little research before this live event, I stumbled upon a video of you, Albin, and it was a mini documentary where they were interviewing you about podcasting. And you mentioned there, and I just think this is really important to keep in mind as we are diving into audio quality. But you mentioned that, let me get your exact quote here. That there's true power in voice and in hearing someone's story and feeling a connection to them. So that really is what, podcasting is all about. But in order to get that content and connect with your listeners, you got to have the good audio. Otherwise, you might not keep them around. And so I just thought that was a great place to start as we dive into magic mastering.
Well, I don't remember when I said that, but I still agree.
Yeah.
And I have experienced that where you listen to a story, you listen to a podcast, and you're like, this is really good. I'm connecting to the host. And yet there's a level where the audio is so bad that it just starts getting distracting and it's getting in the way of enjoying the podcast. So that's why since we first started using Magic Mastering, I was a fan. It cleans up all of our audio for us.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and actually, again, while I was looking into things for this event, I stumbled upon a Reddit thread, and there was 62 comments, and that theme was the overarching theme that you could have great content, but the minute that the audio is south, listeners are out, and
Yeah.
sometimes they'll try, like, but if you're
Yeah.
gonna choose, what's your go-to for your podcast, it's probably gonna be the one that's a little easier on the ears. So, are there any pet peeves that you guys have experienced as a listener that you're like, I'm out, can't do it? What is it, Jordan? You gotta share.
I got one. I ran into this today. Drives me
Oh,
absolutely insane is when a podcast audio is more quiet than the ads that they're running. And so
Oh,
I will
ooh,
be in the shower, like it's full blast. And so I'm listening to
yeah,
this, and then
yeah,
the ad will come on and it'll just like jar me, but I can't do anything about it because I'm in the shower. I'm like washing dishes, my hands are wet.
yeah,
So, like, oh well.
yeah,
And it's just
absolutely.
so frustrating.
Yeah, that
the
would be
one
jarring for sure.
that I get a lot is people accidentally, I think, record with their laptop microphone rather than the
Yeah,
microphone that they intend to.
yeah,
And if you're using a podcast mic, you're probably going to get pretty good audio if you're in a quiet environment.
yeah.
Yeah.
But the laptop mics, some in particular, are really bad and it just makes it harder to clean up. And so
Mhm.
you get that really like echoey reverb noise. And I always feel like a little unsettled, like I'm talking to
Yeah,
somebody in a giant room, or I'm listening to
right.
the opposite end of a giant room, and it just gets a little bit in your head. You're thinking about that rather than thinking about the cool story about when they went on a safari or something.
Yeah.
It's so true. Yeah, I was wondering if I was a little biased sometimes because we work in the space, so I'm like, "Am I just being critical?" But I don't think so. I mean, that Reddit thread kinda proved, no, listeners, whether you work in podcasting or not, agree. The audio affects if you're gonna stick around or not, so, yeah.
Tara, I want to know what your audio pet peeve is.
Probably the same as Albin's with the echo. Yeah,
Yeah.
I
It
just
gets you.
it does, and I can and I guess I'm like, there's a fairly easy solution to that, and it would just sound
Mhm.
so much more enjoyable and, just nicer in my ears. I don't know, especially if you're in the car and it's
Oh,
really
yeah.
loud. It's
Mhm.
Yeah.
just hard. It's hard to stick around, so, yeah.
Okay.
Well, thankfully, we have this tool, Magic
Yes.
Mastering, that's going to help with all of this audio editing that is really hard to do if you're doing it by yourself. And so we want to do it for you using this feature. So before we get into it, part of the audio, unfriendly listening that we were talking about is the levels, the
Yes.
volume. And so actually Apple Podcast agrees with this and put out standards for what they recommend is the best audio level for spoken word podcast because they're concerned with how it's going to hit their listeners. So, Albin, can you explain what the industry's best practices are for audio levels and a little bit of background as to why Apple created these?
So the standard is going to be -16 or -19 LUFS. These are just technical terms based on the type of audio file. It's going to be mono versus stereo. What does it really mean?
Yeah.
There's a consistent level that's how loud things get. And the industry knows, hey, if we're all about the same level, so nothing gets super loud or super quiet, then pretty much people don't have to, adjust the audio volume up, down, and up and down.
Mhm. Mhm.
And
Right.
so you shouldn't ever have that experience. Like, you were talking about earlier, it's kind of quiet, or that Jordan mentioned earlier, it's kind of quiet. And then the ad pops in super loud. This happens a lot of times just across the two hosts in a podcast. Sometimes
Mhm.
one's significantly louder than the other just because they set the levels on their computer or their audio interface differently. So Apple said, all right, everything should be about the same.
Mhm.
Just everyone bring it to the same loudness setting so that you switch from one podcast to the next, and then you hear an ad, and then you hear another host. It should all not hurt your ears. Nothing
Right.
should be so quiet that you turn up the dial and then something so loud that you're cranking it back down.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you
Yeah.
for so in order to appreciate the work into, leveling out this audio, we gotta understand where it came from. So, with that, Jordan, you're a podcast producer here. So,
Mhm.
what is it that Magic Mastering is doing for us that we would otherwise have to do on our own within our editing software? In simple
Yeah.
terms.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because as Albin was talking about this, I remember when I was first starting podcasting and learning how to edit audio. And I don't know what it was with the like audio editing softwares, finding how to match loudness levels, like not normalizing, but like match the luff levels is
Yeah.
nearly impossible to find in audio editing softwares. I don't know what it is. It is so difficult. It's there, but it's really hard to find. And it's a very difficult concept to grasp. And so I would spend hours and hours and hours and hours trying to do all this stuff. But with Magic Mastering, you literally just upload your audio file. You don't have to do the loudness. You don't have to do all that different stuff. You can just upload it. And then as the file processes, like uploads into Buzzsprout, it works behind the scenes. So it's kind of like how, yeah, you can wash your car by getting out the hose and the bucket and like the suds and it's going to look great. Or you could just drive it through the car wash and it's going to look really good too. So it's kind of like that for your audio, right?
I love that analogy. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's great. Awesome. I didn't mention this before, but I do want to let everyone who is tuning in live right now know, if you have any questions at all during this event, please communicate with us and let us know your questions in the chat. We are happy to answer anything that you're wondering about when it comes to Magic Mastering. And then also, if you are watching the replay of this video, feel free to leave it in the comments. We want to answer all of your questions. So I just want to jump right into Magic Mastering. And so some may not know that, yes, Magic Mastering is used to level out our audio, the actual volume, but it's actually multifaceted. So there's actually two other components to Magic Mastering. The first being adaptive leveling. So Albin, can you talk to us a little bit about what that part of Magic Mastering is doing to your audio?
Well, just like we talked about leveling, if you have two people that are slightly different levels, it's going to bring those to the same level. But if you talk to anyone who gets animated, a lot of times you kind of start off quiet and you're just relaxed, but then something pumps you up and you start getting louder and you get excited and you're laughing really big and the podcast is great. Yeah. Well, you can start getting very loud, even for a period. And so Magic Mastering is going to adapt the levels. Say, okay, for a consistent period, you were getting loud. Let's tone that down and let's bring this area up. So again, we have consistency. Yeah. It doesn't mean that everything ends up monotone. It just means don't really the listener should not be reaching up constantly to change the volume in the car. If they're doing that, leveling is probably off. Yeah. And so you should be able to get excited. You should be able to maybe have moved a little bit away from the mic for half a second, and Magic Mastering should take care of this perfectly.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. So that's a little bit about the adaptive leveling. There's the third component is audio sweetening. So Jordan, how do we sweeten our audio with Magic Mastering?
Oh, we make it so sweet.
Yeah.
So the way that we do this, audio sweetening, it just kind of puts the finishing polish on the audio. So yeah, we have the loudness normalization, the adaptive leveling so that levels are all good, but then we have to make it sound pretty. It's the final touches. And so this is some light EQ settings, maybe a little bit of compression. And then it also does background noise removal. So something to know about when you're recording, even if you have a good microphone, there's just ambient noise. Air has a sound. Your room has a sound. Environments have sound to them, even if it's really subtle. And so what this does is it just kind of cleans up that ambient noise and just makes the audio really crisp and clear and concise. And so it's not muddy. It's very you can just hear the brightness of it. It sounds just so much more clear. And you'll be able to hear that in our examples that we're going to be doing here in a little bit. But it just makes it sound really nice and polished.
Absolutely. Yeah. And there's nothing worse when you finish recording an episode and then you hear the microphone, that buzzing, that it maybe wasn't plugged in all the way, or that little humming.
And someone's fan was going on. Yeah.
And the audio is done, and you're like, how am I going to do this again? Been waiting weeks for this guest, and so that is Magic Mastering coming in clutch to remove that, and all you're doing is enabling it and uploading it into Buzzsprout. So very helpful. All right.
Well,
go ahead.
Well, and I think that back in the day when people were recording, back before we had things like Magic Mastering, you would have to get your gain levels just right so there was no background noise. You'd have to noise gate everything. It was very technical.
Yeah.
You had to be very technically minded to record a good podcast, right? And
Mhm.
nowadays it's like, yeah, if it's August and you've got the heat going, but you have to record this episode, leave the AC on. Who cares?
Right.
Because Magic Mastering is going to clean it up.
Yes.
No one's going to hear it. I promise.
Yep.
So it's one of those things.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we've had this so many times with this mic. I'm sure a lot of people have seen SM7B. It's a very popular podcast mic, but it needs all the gain turned way up, which means all audio interfaces are going to be running really hot, and then they get that background sound. And it's a pain to get that out of the audio. And so you're kind of just fiddling, like, can we run it a little bit quiet and boost it later? Or what do we need to do? Do we run something like a cloud lifter? And now there's more components. It's one really nice that as a whole, the recording equipment has gotten better. But second, that the software solutions are starting to step into the gap too. So everybody's getting better audio without, I spent a lot of time trying to diagnose all of these problems on my own setup, and it's just a pain. It's a pain to spend your time setting up mics rather than having the conversations that you think are so exciting.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. And there's so much work into podcasting already. Your content, your guest, it's like, oh, let's take this piece out and like you said, the car wash. I am not bringing out the bucket and the sponge today. Okay. We're just, here we go. All right. So we actually have some examples that we're going to share so you can hear Magic Mastering at work. But before we do, we actually have a question that has come in. So let's, I'm going to display that here. It's from Parker. And Parker says, can it help audio that was recorded at a high level and has that cracking, popping sound? Jordan.
So I think what Parker is referring to is called clipping. And so it's when your microphone is too hot and the noise is just passing the threshold of what your mic can like handle. And so you'll hear like a cracking, popping sound. And it can ease that sound. Really, clipping is very difficult to get rid of, even if you're using like a high-powered like anti-clipping diagnosis tool, which I have used, and it can help a bit. But even with those like expensive tools, you can't fully remedy it, but it can make it sound better. It can kind of soften it a little bit. But yeah, it's hard when you go a little bit too far the other way and it's a little too loud. But
that one's tough.
If I can try to give you like an idea of what's happening with clipping, imagine you're trying to take a photo of a landscape and you've got a mountain range in the background. That mountain range, this is in this analogy, this is the waveform. And you just zoomed in a little too much and you clipped the top of those mountains off. And now you're going, okay, how do I get the full mountain in the photo? Well, it actually isn't even in the audio file anymore. That information is lost because we're zoomed in too much. And so that's why clipping or that really loud noise is going to be, it's almost like it was out of frame during the recording. Again, there's things you can do to try to smooth it over, like Jordan's talking about. But the very best solution is if you can get a good clean, the cleaner the audio at the front end, actually getting everything in frame when you take the photo is going to make it so much easier to edit the audio or edit the photo later on.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. All right. Thank you, Parker, for writing in and asking that question. Okay, so yeah, we actually have some examples that we want to show you, let you listen to actually, of Magic Mastering at work. So, and Jordan, these examples came from podcasts that you were working on. So if you want to let us know.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, sorry.
No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, because professional podcasters, sometimes you just get some raw recordings. Like it just happens.
Right. Yeah.
You can't win them all.
No.
But Magic Mastering can sure clean it up. So I felt like these were like the ones that popped in my head immediately when we were looking for examples.
All right, I'm going to bring this up. Just make sure your mic is not muted, guys. All right, so let's go ahead with example number 1.
Okay. Kevin's audio quality is terrible.
It's
What is
not-
happening right now?
There's no way my audio quality is terrible.
It's really bad. Kevin's audio quality is terrible.
It's
What
not-
is happening right now?
There's no
Is it echoing for you guys?
It was playing through my computer speakers for some reason. I don't know why this one did.
Yeah.
So I tried muting it.
Okay,
All right, I think
let's.
you should stay muted during this section then, and then Carrie, you play it again, so we don't get that.
All right, let's all mute and then we'll do it.
Feed. There's a good audio tip for everybody on.
Yeah,
There
there
we
we
go.
go.
We're learning. Okay, let me go.
Oh,
There's no way my audio quality is terrible.
it's really bad.
over, the course of a day. So I got to get on that.
I'm thinking about like Reddit responses, everything.
Yeah, anytime you've got a repeated chunk of text that you want to be able to give to people.
Over, the course of a day. So I got to get on that.
I'm thinking about like, okay, so that first example, that was during a Buzzcast recording when our co-host jokingly went to record in his car because I wouldn't let him record from his car while he was out for one of the previous recordings. And it sounded so bad. And I left it in the show to be like, haha. But then I ran our episode through Magic Mastering, and then it made it sound totally normal, and so the joke didn't land.
Yeah.
So, I felt like that was such a good example.
Oh, that is a great example, especially with the context.
Yes.
Oh,
Yes.
I love that.
And
And
then
they just go ahead.
Oh, no, you can keep going.
I was just going to say, I had a question the other day, an orientation I was doing with a new podcaster, and they said, what do you need to get started in podcasting? And while absolutely a mic, a recording space, a computer is all ideal, really, I mean, you can even record an episode on your phone in the car. Just look, there you go. Yeah.
Yeah, where technology is at now, it's pretty passable. Okay, so this second example is from our other podcast, Happy to Help, where we'll like sometimes have guests on. So this guest was recording very long distance, and I think the internet was a little iffy, and his audio was much more muffled and much more quiet than ours was. And we didn't notice it during the recording, but then afterward, when I got it into the editing software, I noticed how quiet it was. So I felt like this was a good example too.
Awesome. And aside from listening, if you're tuning in, watch the wave, right on the screen, because you can really see the levels there. So, okay, I'm going to mute and play it.
Over, the course of a day. So I got to get on that.
I'm thinking about like Reddit responses, everything.
Yeah, anytime you've got a repeated chunk of text that you want to be able to give to people.
Over, the course of a day. So I got to get on that.
I'm thinking about like Reddit responses, everything.
Yeah, anytime you've got a repeated chunk of text that you want to be able to give to people.
Yeah, and did you hear at the very beginning when Priscilla's talking, you can hear a hum because the AC was running in that in that studio that you're in right now. The AC was running, and so you could hear a hum underneath her speaking in that example too, and it totally took it out. It's completely clean. So
yeah, that's awesome. Wow.
What I'm seeing in the WAV files here is pretty significant differences in levels.
Yeah.
So the first bit is Priscilla, who the first time she talks, she's a little bit hotter, and then she is a little bit less enthusiastic for the second half, so it's a little bit quieter. And so that's the adaptive leveling. And then we go over to Jordan, I think it's you, who says something about Reddit responses, and yours gets a little bit raised, but not too much. And then the guest is by far the quietest, and his gets boosted. And then it just sounds like a normal conversation by the end of it, where you're all in a room about the same distance from me, and nobody's much louder than anyone else. Very, very different experience. It would have, like, this was a really good example of, I feel like, the leveling making a difference.
Absolutely. Yes. Awesome. Thank you for grabbing those for us, Jordan. That was helpful. Awesome. All right. Looks like we had a couple questions while we were playing those. So let's answer those really quick. So does Magic Mastering remove background noise? Who wants to tackle this one?
Yes. So it's best at background noise that is consistent. So if it's going to be the background noise of the hum of my AC, or maybe it's just some of the ambient room noise, maybe for a period, there's a lawnmower kind of out in the distance and a little bit of that sound kind of came through. It's going to be awesome at pulling that out. If the background noise is like one time you drop something and it makes a noise, it's hard for any software to determine you didn't want something dropped in the background. It might sound like it was a sound effect.
Right.
And so mostly that will not be taken out. But the consistent background noise is exceptionally difficult to clean up generally. That's going to be really good at being pulled out.
Yeah, you basically need to edit out anything that is not consistent, like what Alvin was saying. So you do have to do some light editing to take out like a dog barking, or if a motorcycle revs outside. Honestly, I have a lot of motorcycles outside and it gets those pretty well. But you do have you do have to take it out sometimes. So just make sure you get like the big things, or if someone coughs, it's not going to edit out a cough. So
I feel like that's part of like keeping it real too. I mean, if we like Alvin said, if there was a big noise, what if that was the part that was part of your show and then the software takes it out? You don't want that. So you want it to still feel like it was intended. So
yeah.
We had somebody in our Reddit community talking about outtakes from his show. And one of his outtakes was he was doing a video recording, and then the person he was interviewing, their cat like walked across the keyboard and like got between him and the camera at one point, and they laughed and they kicked the cat off the table and they record. And he was like, I don't know to leave it in or take it out. And I was like, I'm of the opinion, like, if it's funny and it's not too long, leave it in. It's a humanizing moment versus everything kind of coming off like Instagram over polished, where everything kind of feels a bit fake. Podcasting allows you to have a bit of a mistake in there. People aren't turning it off instantly. And so you can just be yourself and people can laugh along with you.
Yeah, that's a great point. I love that. We do have one more question here. So what if the initial recording is noisy? Does it make the noise louder? I think this maybe is saying like if the volume starts off really loud, or do you think they're talking about background noise?
I feel like it's probably background noise.
Okay.
Yeah,
I imagine.
We kind of touched on that. Yeah.
Yeah. I think, I mean,
noise.
even if you're recording, to be honest with you, even if you're recording like maybe outdoors, like if let's say that you're recording a podcast while you walk and like it's your walking podcast. Whatever. That's a terrible example, but you're going to have like the ambient noise. Honestly, it's probably going to clean up a lot of that. So even if you're walking and like there's some wind blowing and maybe there's some traffic in the background, some of that might get picked up. Like you might hear a bird chirping or something in the background, but for the most part, I think it'll actually clean that kind of stuff up pretty well. So even if it's noisy, I would say run it through and you might be very surprised.
Yeah.
We years ago went to a podcasting conference and ran a studio. And part of it was the studio had soundproofing, but we left the top open because we wanted some of the background noise to be like, hey, we're recording on location, and you could kind of hear all the conversations in the background.
Yeah.
If we ran that audio through Magic Mastering, we lose that background noise and it wouldn't have gotten louder, like with that adaptive leveling. That would have been identified as this is kind of a consistent noise range that sounds like it should be pulled out. It would have gotten pulled out, but we actually wanted it there because we wanted the feeling of, no, you're on the showroom floor with us as we have this conversation. So I think the answer for this questioner is, it's not going to get louder. It'll probably get removed.
Perfect. All right. Great question. Thank you for writing in. All right. So in support, sometimes we get the question of should our podcasters be uploading audio files as a mono audio file or a stereo audio file? So our recommendation is mono, and it's because we optimized your audio as it is uploaded into Buzzsprout. So, Alvin, can you talk a little bit about the optimization process and how that might affect a stereo file if it's uploaded?
Yeah. Well, 96K mono is our recommendation for the best way to have your file optimized for podcast delivery. But it's also just nice because it's going to work on any speaker environment. It's going to sound really good. It's high quality enough that human voice sounds authentic. And stereo, I'm sure people understand the difference between mono and stereo. Mono is there's only one sound wave, and so you hear it in both ears. Stereo is you can differentiate. Something sounds like it's actually a little bit more in the right ear and something else sounds a little more in the left ear. That introduces a lot of new problems because maybe I accidentally recorded my audio in the right side and Jordan's on the left. Now it sounds like we're in different spots.
Yeah.
And you just end up with a lot of weird things. We recommend almost everybody should be using a mono recording.
Yeah.
There can be issues though, because we will take anything. You send us a video file and we'll go, we understand how to take a video file and turn it into an audio and make it the right type of audio. You gave us a kind of a strange audio format. We're going to go ahead and fix it for you. And there can be some, I think this is what you're hinting at, a phase issue.
Yes.
Where it's just a weird issue where each ear is actually listening to the opposite waveform from each other, like exactly opposite mirror images. And those mirror images, when combined, can actually cancel out to almost nothing. So if you ever upload a file and your Magic Mastering comes out like extremely quiet, like there's almost nothing there, you might have just had one of these strange audio files that you uploaded. And the good news is if you reach out to support, we know how to fix it and we're happy to do it. But that's about a 1 in 1,000 chance that that's ever going to happen to you.
Yeah, absolutely. And Jordan, can you tell us, some podcasters do utilize stereo. So what type of podcast or when is it appropriate to move from that mono file to a stereo file?
What you could use that for absolutely is music. Music uses that, you'll have different instruments and different parts. Maybe you want like a sound around. Same thing with audio fiction. If you want someone talking from across the room, you're probably going to want them in one side and then the other person is like a little bit closer here. And then maybe someone standing in between them. And so it's the middle. I know that there are some tabletop like role-playing podcasts where depending on where someone's sitting around the table, they will put that person, they'll pan that person to one side or the other. If you do that, you can use stereo. Sure, have at it. But for most podcasters, it is overkill. The audio files are massive, and it means it takes longer for your listeners to download it, and then it takes up storage space on their phones. And it's just such overkill for like something like this. It would be absolutely ridiculous for us to upload in stereo. So really, most podcasters, like unless you're doing some sort of like gorgeous cinematic Oscar worthy I guess Grammy would be sound worthy audio production,
right,
sure, go for stereo. But other than that, I would do the mono. But yeah,
and we're talking 99% of podcasters shouldn't even be worried about this or thinking about it.
Yeah,
correct. Yeah,
every popular podcast you listen to is going to be a mono, except Song Exploder or something that's getting the rights to music and adding that music in because they want to be true to what the music artist actually had going on.
Yeah.
Besides that, it's mono and it's awesome. And that's how everybody does it.
Yeah.
I was thinking of the one that Aaron Mahnke from Lore did, the Bridgewater podcast. And it was like one of the first podcasts done in Dolby Atmos, where it was like surround sound. So you had to get the surround sound things to get the full effect of like being in the Bridgewater Triangle. It was crazy. Listen to it. It's great. But I was thinking that's not even stereo. That was like Dolby Atmos. So I can't even think of an example.
If you want special headphones to listen to your podcast, maybe you want.
That is the 1%, not the 99. Yeah,
that is the one.
Yes. Well, yes, like Jordan and Albin said, if you are just doing your spoken word podcast, it's not a audio cinema, anything like that, then go with mono. It's the easiest to use, and you just can use Magic Mastering on that by enabling that inside of your Buzzsprout account. But if you are a part of the 1% and you're hosted with us like Jordan said, you can still upload a stereo file. And inside of your Buzzsprout account, you'll see settings. You'll just uncheck the automation and switch to mostly music. And that is how you would be able to upload a stereo file into Buzzsprout without us optimizing it and creating a phase issue. So it's an option, but if you're uploading a standard spoken word podcast, we don't recommend it. So, all right. So I am hoping that everyone who has listened to this video so far is ready to use Magic Mastering. So Alvin, how do they get to it? How do we use it in Buzzsprout? And can they give it a try before committing to using it all the time? So let us know.
You can upload an audio file and then we will say, hey, do you want to try Magic Mastering on this file? And then we will master it for you. And then you'll be able to hear the updated version. And I love that you can just go do it and try it out, especially when you have audio that you're like, mostly I'm good, but this was one that was rough and I want to give it a test. Give it a test, see if we're able to fix the issue for you. And if we can, then maybe it's something you do long term. But if it's just a one-off and we help take care of you, then that's good too.
Absolutely. Perfect. All right. Well, it doesn't look like we've had any new questions come in. And so that was all we had for plan to talk about during this live. But I want to leave you with, I said this earlier, but this video will be available to watch again, replay on our Buzzsprout YouTube channel. So check it out. And if you are watching this after the fact, please leave your comments. We're always monitoring those and we will get your questions answered. And then in general, we have a lot of Magic Mastering videos that can really help you on that same YouTube channel. And we also have help articles, and we'll list all of those on this so that you can get to them easily. But otherwise, yeah, just let us know. And if you are a Magic Mastering user and you're using it already, please share with us your experience. We'd love to hear from you and maybe how it saved the day when your co-host recorded in the car. I mean, love hearing stories like that. So leave them in the comments below. We would love that. But with that, I think we are good. So Jordan and Alvin, thank you so much for being here and sharing your knowledge. I'm so thankful for that. And
thanks for joining.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, thanks to everybody for coming, and we appreciate it. And we will answer any comments that are down in the that you leave. So even if it's after the fact, let us know. We'd love to help.
Yeah, absolutely. As always, keep podcasting.
Bye.